Dimana Markova, thanks for joining ABM Answered.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Dimana, we met in 2017, which is almost a decade ago, which is absolutely
Don't say that.
bonkers. Yeah, I know. So we were both working. It was actually my first job in tech. I was working at Jewel, who is still going strong. Big up Paul and team. And I mean, I was trying to find my feet, but were you at uni at the time doing an internship?
I was doing an internship. So I just graduated my undergraduate and I was about to start my master's, and that was the summer in between. That was my first actual marketing gig whatsoever. I'd done a couple of internships before that, but they were in PR and in a newsroom. So this was my first my first kind of experience with marketing whatsoever. And you were there to witness it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Paul asking me, it's like, can you help the man with stuff? And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing myself anyway.
We were so little. Looking at it now, we were...
Oh, 100%. And I'm weirdly going through the same thing at the moment with a few people, some more junior people looking to get their first jobs in marketing and asking me, how did you do it? And I was like, I don't really know what I did. It was just turn up to whatever opportunity people throw at you and give it a go.
Yeah, for sure. And just would you redo anything if you could go back to that time at Joe? Would you change any? Do you give people advice?
Yeah, probably not do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was good. But it was one of those things that once you're in that career, that's, I don't know, it was one of those pinnacle moments. It was my first job in London, and I don't regret that at all.
No, it was a fun office to work at.
That was a great office. What would you change?
I would not be so stupid. I'd ask a lot more questions. I think that's something that you become comfortable with as time goes on. Because I remember you were tasked with actually explaining to me what the company does and what the product is and everything. And I remember this very vividly. I remember there was this couch right by the front door. And we were sat there and you had to walk me through, give me basically a demo. And I remember I just kept looking at you being like, I don't even understand what you're saying. I don't even know if this is English.
That was probably more of me, not you, a problem. I traumatized you that much.
Say again?
I traumatized you that much?
No, not at all. Clearly not, if I'm here all this time later.
Well, it's taken you almost 10 years to forgive me. Right, let's dive in. Okay. So you basically had I think you went off and did a master's in psychology was it LSE or something afterwards?
Yeah. So I did a master's in behavior psychology and communications. So it was a joint degree between two schools at LSE. And that was a pretty good transition into marketing. Basically has both of those components in it.
And you've been doing it since, am I right?
I've been doing it since, yeah.
Not was it the last 5 years all for yourself as well? Kind of self-employed?
4.5, yeah.
4.5.
Very quickly decided I fancy the self-employment life. Or it really started as an experiment. I decided to kind of dip my toes in it. And I wasn't really expecting very much. But then very quickly kind of figured, okay, this is making sense, and it was working. So yeah, I've been doing it strong for the past 4.5 years.
Nice. Well, you must be good at it to stay in business for yourself, which is why we've asked you to come on, right? So, Dimana, what we're going to do is ABM Answered is a quick fire demand gen ABM show. And I've collated some community questions that I'm going to post you. And all of these questions will be obviously focused around content and how you can use content and digital marketing to help close deals. So challenge 1 is around content not converting. So I think this is more to do with the inefficiencies that, marketing can create so much content, and it's almost hit and miss of what works and what doesn't. That's why we create so much of it. But what's the number one mistake you see B2B kind of brands making when it comes to potentially copy that actually, encourages action? And yeah, feel free to lean into your behavioral side. Is it a degree? Yeah, master's degree in behavioral psychology as well, because I'm super interested in that sort of stuff.
That's a good question. What makes it work? Usually what I see when I start working with clients is yeah, they publish a lot and they publish good content. But what happens a lot is I'll come in and I'll ask, why have you decided to publish all the things that you've published so far? And usually there isn't like a very clear answer. And what typically tends to happen, I think, is that there is a broader vision as to what's supposed to be the problem and what's supposed to be the content that is going to attract people who want to solve that problem. There isn't really like a very strong foundation oftentimes as to, okay, have you actually spoken to the people that you're trying to create this content for? Have you actually heard how they communicate about this problem? Have you actually taken the time to really understand their actual pain points? And I feel like it's a really hard sell to kind of establish within the team because it feels a little bit fluffy. It feels a little bit like, okay, well, why are we going to take all of this time to speak with different people and to do all this and that when we've been writing content for quite a while? We feel like we know what we're doing. And I get that. And it does take a long time. Often equated to like if you're trying to set a goal, if you're trying to like lose weight, for example, and you just like start exercising or you just like start doing stuff and you probably reach to a certain place, you probably won't be able to reach to like your absolute kind of goal or like the absolute like end point that you're trying to get to. And that's because you haven't like taken time in the beginning to really outline what is going to work, what is not going to work. And that's kind of because that's kind of a lot of what we learned in psychology and behavior psychology. And because people think that it was just like lectures where they teach you all these like secret tricks about how to hack people or how to like manipulate them. It was actually a lot more boring than that. There was some of that, but there was actually a lot of like qualitative analysis and advanced quantitative statistics, all of that. And that wasn't necessarily bad in retrospect. I didn't enjoy the classes, and I definitely don't remember how to like use statistical software or anything like that. But I did take away, how to actually conduct an in-depth interview, how to conduct a focus group, how to actually like listen for what people are saying to you, so that you can then utilize that and essentially regurgitate it in a way that feels like something people will connect to, that feels like something people will recognize. And that again, I understand that that sounds a little bit fluffy, but it is a skill in and of itself. And then second of all, just like figuring out based on that, okay, what are you actually going to test and optimize? Because again, like psychology is a lot about having a hypothesis and knowing how to test that hypothesis. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I feel like move the needle a lot more than necessarily a specific CTA that is going to make or break the copy of a certain page. Like no, there isn't a hack as much as I wish there was.
Well, firstly, that's an ambivalent feeling of I feel joy that you've made me like the part of the reason why I wanted to study psychology was because I thought it literally was for those hacks and things. And I feel sad that it's not about that. But also, I would have been pissed as well if I'd paid that money and no one taught me any like how to hypnotize people. So anyway, that's good. On when it comes to what you make, what you said totally adds up. Is it literally a case of you as the kind of person in charge of content picking up the phone and talking to customers, or is it talking through sales teams? Like, how are you getting these insights of what's relevant and what's not?
Both, to be honest. So in certain cases, yeah, it absolutely makes sense to speak to the broader team inside the company. Sales, we usually know quite a few things. Customer success, or who else? Like the actual product team, even developers or people that are sometimes like really, really invested into, why they're making a certain feature, what's kind of the thought process behind it, and it makes a lot of sense to kind of chat with them, whether that may be difficult or not. But also like the actual customers. And that's sometimes it depends on the company. Sometimes that's easy, sometimes that's less easy to find those people who'll be willing to take time out of their day and speak to you and share their thoughts and opinions and insights. But you spend enough time on the company's social media, or you spend enough time like chatting to people who are actually working in-house in the company, and you figure out like at least a few people who would be a good example of what the actual like ideal client persona looks like.
That okay makes total sense. I'm really conscious of time there, although I keep adding too many questions to these interviews. But we'll keep going through them. Challenge 2: thought leadership. So everyone wants to be a thought leader, right? Or every marketing team is tasked with making the company or the CEO look like a thought leader. In your view, what separates real thought leadership from just posting? And like, how do you actually earn respect from your potential target audience over just acquiring likes? And actually, this is quite interesting for me as well, because I'm trying to figure that out. Definitely some things I know if I post it will get more likes and things, and there's other things that I post which maybe get minimal engagement. Yeah, I get like 3 DMs about something else. Anyway, over to you.
That's a really good analogy that you made there, or like a example that you gave rather, because you say, oh, some of my posts work, some of them don't, and I think that's kind of okay. It doesn't mean that you're not on the path
I
of
hope so.
thought leader. um yeah, it's an interesting question, like what separates someone posting on LinkedIn versus a thought leader. And it kind of feels like if you were to ask me what separates someone who goes for a run versus someone who's training for a marathon. Like in and of itself, they're both the same activity. And it's a relatively simple and straightforward activity. You're going for a run, posting something on LinkedIn. But if you were someone who's just like kind of doing a little bit of cardio every now and then to keep in shape, you would probably be a little bit sporadic. You wouldn't have a goal. You wouldn't really track anything. You just kind of do it whenever you felt like it. And I think that is a lot of what's happening still on LinkedIn. People would say, oh, why am I not a thought leader? Why am I not like really getting much out of LinkedIn? And you ask them, okay, what are you actually hoping to get specifically? What are you doing to get there? What are you measuring? And oftentimes there isn't a clear answer. Whereas, to keep up with the analogy, if you were to want to train for a marathon, which I think you are, if I remember correctly, you probably
Yeah. I wish I didn't tell people that. Now I can't back out. Yeah.
no, I think that's a good strategy. You should tell people about that. But I did a couple years ago. I trained for a marathon, and I had a very specific, I had some kind of schedule that I was trying to stick to, and I knew, when my long runs would be, when my speed runs would be, like kind of what I need to eat, what I need to track, and it's very very similar for probably for a lot of things, but for LinkedIn for sure. Um, so yeah, you kind of need to know what you're trying to get out of it, and you need to be consistent. You need to be um, conscious of it. And then in terms of like, in terms of it as a service, I think the main difference of like trying to just post LinkedIn content on behalf of someone and actually like working towards making someone a thought leader is really taking the time to understand that person and to understand the knowledge that they probably have. If someone is bold enough to say, to put the goal even out there, to be like, oh, I'm going to be a thought leader, they probably have something worthwhile to share. You would hope so. And yeah, taking that time is quite vital. When I first started like publishing on behalf of other people, I don't think I had the confidence to really ask for their time. I kind of assumed that I was being paid in order to simplify their process as much as possible and to save as much of their time as possible. So I kind of took it upon myself to really research the topics that they're supposed to be posting about. It didn't really work because essentially I was just kind of repeating things that were already out there. And I didn't even have that deep of an expertise, so I couldn't even repeat them that well. But as soon as I started, scheduling time in with the actual, founders or CEOs or like sales executives or whatever have you, learning about what they're doing, learning about the things that interest them, the things that they're doing, the case studies, the examples of work and success that they have, that's when the content starts getting more interesting, more personal, resonates better, and becomes more of a thought leadership content than just a regular LinkedIn post.
What you just said there was extremely valuable. All of it was, of course, but that last bit is really interesting because it literally relies on the founder or the leaders at the company because they're the one. If you want to be a thought leader, I guess. I love the analogy as well, the sprint, not the marathon. You almost, yeah, it's like a, yeah, to summarize what you said in my head, how I've assumed, it's like a two-pronged approach. I get people ask me, oh, you're always popping up in my feed, and that's sometimes good, that's sometimes bad, whatever, but like you kind of want to be the familiar person, and then you want to optimize for. Devon reads, I went to an event in the US, and he said he's big on his content, and he was like, you want to optimize for one word, right? Whether that's events or marketing, and like all the contents around that, so that when they see your face, they just think, oh, events, or when
that's
people look at you, Dimana, it's like content. And then the last piece, though, which I think is super vital and probably the most valuable part of what you said, is you don't want to be regurgitating what's already out there. You can to some degree, I think, but actually the interesting insights are the ones of the people that are breaking new ground, who are treading like unfamiliar territory, because that's where the leverage is. Like if you're doing everything that everyone else is doing, you're never going to get like those big breakthroughs. Whereas if you're, one of the top 10-20% on like this new kind of concept or like this new format, like look at TikTok, for example. It was around, I don't know, in 2015, but in 2020 you could shoot up, couldn't you? Anyway, we're going off piste here, but I totally agree with like the fact that you shouldn't try and kind of get in the CEO's head. You should just ask them kind of what their thoughts are.
What I think is I think I picked up on that. What I think is something that I don't necessarily agree on personally is that you need to be like really, really special. You need to be like one of those like 10% people that are doing this for the first time. I don't personally agree with that. I think you probably have a lot to share, even if you're doing something that's not necessarily already done, but like you probably don't realize how special the things that you are doing really are.
Yeah.
And I just found that that through those conversations that I was having, I've like grown to enjoy them a lot, and to really appreciate them. I used to be like really nervous before jumping on those calls that would like inform my the future content that I'm writing for the next month or so. But the more calls like that I had with clients, they became kind of like those mini. I almost feel like I'm their personal, like, I don't know, not psychologist, I don't want to say that, but I'm someone that they take
Therapist.
a little bit of time. Well, no, but I don't know what the right word is. But essentially, they just take time out of their day to kind of sit and answer questions about their business that they wouldn't necessarily stop and really like ponder about. And it's almost like they realized how cool like things are as they're talking about it. And then I'm able to pick up on some of the stuff, and then they see it later on as like a LinkedIn post, and they're like, yeah, do you know what, that was actually pretty cool.
Do you know what? You are so right. And the word I think you're looking is like counsel, right? It's
A
like
little
someone
bit,
that,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they come to you, like synthesize everyone's thoughts, relay it. And also, you're right. From like if you don't have much industry expertise as well, you everyone's in their own like little echo chambers,
Mm-hmm.
especially founders. And I'm do it all the time. I think something's been overdone so many times, but that's
And you
because
don't
I'm
appreciate
sur-
it.
so yeah, you don't appreciate it, and you're surrounded by other people that do similar things, because that's where you've
Or
got it
with
from.
other like really, really successful people. So it's easy to downplay your own success. I think it's quite natural if you're a founder or if you're someone like really high up in the
Mm.
corporate world. You're probably quite ambitious. You're probably like comparing yourself to other people who are also very ambitious. And so I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of nice to like take some time and appreciate your own success and the cool things that you've been doing, and then see like a nice LinkedIn post about it. And you don't have to be the one writing it, because I think that's always like really cringe. I write my own posts, and it's super cringe to write your own posts. So I
Yeah, I
feel
feel
like
I
that's
feel
one
you
of the
there.
reasons why people pay me. It's just so that someone else can take that burden.
No, no, I totally get that. I might start paying you to write mine. Anyway, challenge 3: innovation and experimentation. It came in from Sunda and Kyla. So they both asked similar questions, which is why I've grouped it together. They asked, what is one specific unconventional tactic that you've used, we'll say, like from a digital marketing standpoint, that's worked really well?
I'm trying to think of something very unconventional. I don't know if I necessarily have that. One thing that has been working, and I don't know if this is unconventional, when I do outreach, is I'll very much acknowledge the fact that I'm doing outreach. I think there's a lot of like talk about how all these like methods of like especially like colder outreach are really dead and they don't work anymore. And from my personal experience, they are not, but it very much depends on maybe the scale and the way that you're approaching things. So when I'm writing on behalf of other clients or on my behalf, like a cold email or a cold like DM for them to use, I'll be very appreciative of the fact that we are all getting a lot of these messages. So, yeah, I add value, I offer like a free thing, blah, blah, blah. But I'll also just be very kind of
Transparent,
self-deprecating almost.
self-deprecating. Okay.
Well, borderline, but that tends to work because it kind of makes it more human, I think. I think make it more human is a very generic advice, but like make it funny, make it obvious that you get it, but also you're just saying, I'm trying to, I'm trying to not get fired. I'm trying to, pay my bills. So hear me out. How about like a free whatever? It's a small tactic, but it does seem to work.
Well, it like humanizes you, right? As opposed
Oh
to
yeah.
making all these wild claims that you can like change their life if you buy their ebook or something.
Yeah.
Right, Dimana, challenge 4 to do with attribution. How do you show? Well, it might be quite simple in digital marketing because you can got a paper trail. It might not be, but how would you show like attribution and kind of like tie the results of what you're doing to kind of real results? Speaking of content marketing, so you mentioned ghostwriting there and hosting for your clients.
It really depends on the client, to be perfectly honest. It really depends what their goal was to begin with in order to show that you're achieving that goal. Oftentimes, it really depends actually. If I'm writing like longer content, oftentimes I'll just focus on literally the amount of leads that are being generated through content. With copywriting and then like certain formulas, so like I'll oftentimes look at, depending on how mature the content is, right? So like with bigger companies that have a slightly more mature content marketing already established, I can allow myself to even just like look at, okay, what's converted straight up from content, and then depending on their business model, like multiply it by X amount, take out the costs for content marketing that they've invested in, and then come up with like a return on content spent. So it's a pretty straightforward formula. And with copywriting, it's a little bit more nuanced. So there, like, really depends kind of what like page or what kind of copy you're working on. But typically, if it's a landing page, like how much time have they spent on it? Did they bounce off immediately? Did they actually like perform a certain action and like move on to another page from the one that you've created? And again, this isn't like rocket science, but a little bit of those like psychology elements come into play, because essentially you're saying, did you make that person happy with whatever it is that you created? Did you figure out what they were trying to achieve, and did you offer them something meaningful and valuable? Because oftentimes and you just figure out what are the actual things that show you whether the answer to those questions is yes or no, and those are the things that you track.
Well, it's quite hard to quantify brands, but it's obviously super, super important.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is like to establish early on what are going to be those benchmarks. What are you actually going to track, and not to create content and then scramble to be able to prove that it was worthwhile to create it. Because that kind of reverse methodology happens on occasion, and it just doesn't make any sense. Because you can always try and like prove that, because it's vague enough, you can always try and prove that yes, this was very worthwhile. But unless you actually had a hypothesis, again, like coming back to that kind of way of
Yeah,
thinking with psychology, unless you had a like specific hypothesis and you knew what you were testing for initially, and you were able to either prove or disprove, then yeah, it feels a little bit iffy to me. But also disproving something is just as valuable. I think that's the bit that gets missed a lot. Like if you like had a hypothesis and you disproved it and you were like, okay, this doesn't actually work, fair enough, you still discovered something meaningful.
for sure. It puts you one step closer. I always like marketers as well that describe things for what they aren't, as opposed to always what they are, because it's almost like a smart hack, which I think doesn't get used enough to describe what something isn't, as a way of kind of promoting your product. Challenge 5 came in from James Davies at Blue Yonder. He asked, what technologies are you most excited about and why? I guess when it comes to content and digital marketing.
What am I excited about? I'm currently testing, so I'm currently trying to figure out how to get brands to be seen by, or how to appear in like the answers of LLMs. So how do I make sure, because we went from, okay, how do you make sure you're on page one of Google, to how do you make sure that ChatGPT features you in his answer, her answer, I don't know. And that it's a positive feature as well, because that's also another problem. So that it talks positively about you. So I'm currently like testing a couple of tools for that. We'll see.
So there are tools that exist that do that then, or claim to do that.
Yes, they certainly claim to do that. Yeah, you can. I'll let you know what the results are once I've had time to play around with it.
That's interesting. I guess, no, please do. I heard like Reddit is obviously a big source, and Quora and like those social forums, because that's what ChatGPT starts to pull in there. It's obviously got a stupidly high domain authority, and then that's kind of what it pulls in from. But honestly, SEO is not my
Not
thing.
your forte. What are you excited for?
What am I excited for?
Yeah,
That's a
technology.
great question.
I thought you might be excited for like the potential of AI sort of outreach agents.
No, I'm actually anti-excited by those,
Okay.
which, again, to describe something that you're not is just as helpful, I
Yeah.
guess. I'm actually excited for the return of like actual in-person communication, which isn't like a technology, but like a way of like super connecting technologies where it's not like a LinkedIn kind of aspect, but maybe this concept of you like Bordy. I think it's got a lot to get right, but Bordy's like a super connector technology, and it's basically has a massive database of people. I think it's just scraping LinkedIn for all company information, and it's connecting people on a one-to-one basis. And we're looking to do that with ABM Answered as well. So as some of the guests you'll know, that we will like are starting to connect people up with each other, and I think leveraging technology in that way is what I'm most excited about, but where I see the most value. Saying that, we've just built like a sales training or like marketing enablement tool, which is really cool, and I'm excited by that too. But I don't know. I'm always more excited about like in person stuff. So anything that helps kind of build community is something that I'm interested in. AI, especially when it comes to ABM, I think AI SDRs just they drive me insane. But I don't know. I don't know.
We
I'll have a
don't
think and get back to you.
know where it's gonna end up. I'm curious to see how much more they can develop.
hmm I mean, yeah, they'll get it right eventually, hopefully. Or do I want that to happen? I don't know, because
Good
then
question.
humans are
Yeah.
obsolete. Anyway, challenge 6, ABM myths and mindset shifts. So you touched upon it slightly there with, some people are fixated on the wrong metrics. Mike Davies asked this from Red Hat. He said, what is one sacred cow in B2B marketing that needs to be slaughtered, and why haven't you done it yet?
God, I like that question.
Brutal, isn't it? I feel like Mike's fighting some demons.
I feel like Mike has had to prove marketing budgets with only leads as a valuable metric. I feel like that is one way of thinking that needs to be reconsidered. I think marketing obviously is very much responsible for driving leads. Um, but the difficulty is that it does a lot more than that, and you can't quantify all of it. You can quantify quite a bit, and you should, or you should at least make a solid attempt. But that being said, you should pay attention to your brand as well and understand why that's important, and educate yourself and appreciate it for what it is. Yeah, and not just care about the leads, or have a more of a long-term vision, perhaps. I think that's maybe the difference, is that you think about leads when you think short term, when you think about brand when you think longer term. And one sacred cow that needs to get slaughtered is like just that short term thinking when it comes to marketing. You need to have both, ideally.
Well, it's kind of made your answer that has kind of made me want to change my answer to the previous question. And it would be cool if there was a technology that could like quantify brand in a really like powerful way where you could like tie it to revenue.
I would jump on board to that answer. Yeah, that would be really cool.
Damn, we better get building.
Gosh, that would be really cool. I reckon it's not been done because how would you even go about that? Like there are like social listening tools and things that kind of try and quantify your brand, but it will be it will be near impossible, no?
Well, the way that so one of our clients, big like telecoms company, they actually monitor. They don't actually track revenue because they know there's like a delay. What they're doing, which is I thought was crazy, but it clearly works for them. They're a multi-billion-pound company. Is they ask their customer accounts and partner accounts how they feel about insert company before the event, and then also afterwards as well. How do you feel about that brand experience? Do you feel more positive about this company or less positive about this company? And I guess that's how it's done, kind of on a granular level, but also like I wouldn't know how you would quantify billboards, but then maybe I need to just talk to some other people and piece that together. I don't think I'm smart enough to solve that problem, to be honest. Like who am I kidding? Anyway, enough waffling from me. Question 7. Emily, this is my favorite question I think that's ever been asked. Emily York Goldney asked, if you had unlimited budget, what would be your best in class marketing campaign that you would run?
That's a really cute question. What would be my perfect marketing campaign that I would run? I would love to get more creative with content because obviously that's such a broader word, yeah, broader term. And even though I spend a lot of my time writing content and I really enjoy that, I would love to have the budget to do like a full-on kind of docu-series production that I can get behind, and it will be for, I don't know, like a very kind of complex product that people need to appreciate, and to appreciate like how it's made, but also like make it really kind of funny. I'm imagining something a little bit like, you know, in the office where they have like one camera person and he just like walks around. But it will be like, I don't know, like 33% funny, but also like informative and also kind of like just interesting to watch and to understand like how that thing is being made or why it's being made or da 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 da. Da. And it will like talk to the people in the team, but also it will like kind of engage people because they will be like, what is the drama in the office? So I'm imagining kind of like a short form docuseries that becomes like that becomes very much like a brand centered exercise. And again, kind of like increases the brand visibility quite a lot, but also
Well,
informs about the product.
I you could target that. So from an ABM perspective as well, yeah, you could incorporate like if you had like different episodes and it was like Salesforce or on your target account list, or you know you're trying to close Microsoft, like there could be like episodes titled like your target account. That's actually really funny because also poor bloke and lady, but like well, they got themselves into the mess, but the whole astronomer CEO stuff right now, like their personal life as well, they got stuff going on. But I watched someone posted about it and it was like, why did this go viral? And as humans, we want to know like the
We're
personal
drawn
story
to the story.
behind. Yeah. So if you could run an ABM campaign where if you did have like a camera team in the office, it's like maybe it's 10 episodes in a series if this is for your one-to-one accounts, and it's literally just the team talking about how they're going to close them, or like but a very I do you know what, Dimana? I really love that. I
Yeah,
might even
it's like
try and run with that. We need to, how are we going to get people to all right, this is a really good
it's a
idea.
topic for another time,
This
but
is
yeah.
this is where you bill me thousands of pounds. Anyway, okay, quickly to wrap up, just for fun. Well, we kind of covered it. If you could invent a tool or technology, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I really like the idea of something that measures brand visibility, but dives deep. Because your example there of astronomer was really good, and now we know that astronomer exists as a company, and we know a little bit about their CEO and their head of HR. Do we know any? Do you know anything
No,
other than
I was going to say,
I
but
don't
like
know what
it's
they do. I
pointless.
don't know
Yeah.
anything. Um, so yeah, it would be cool to be able to separate the things. And I was thinking about this from a marketing perspective. I was thinking, oh God, their LinkedIn must be insane right now, in terms of like actual impressions, everything, and website and everything else. But like, how many people next week are going to remember what they even do as a company? So yeah, it'd be cool to have a tool that measures all of those things.
Yeah, no, I agree. But again, I don't know how good it is if you don't know what they do. Anyway, TBC. Last thing, Dimana, do you have a question for our next guest?
Do I have a question for your next guest? Who is your next guest, or do I not know?
I know, I need to look it up, but yes, the point is that you do not know. But
Okay,
they will be in ABM, so they'll be in like growth marketing role.
okay, they'll be in growth marketing role. Okay, my question is,
Think
what
less about them, more about you, I guess. Like what problems have you got that you want help with?
God. Uh, okay, I'll tell you what. My question is, what is like the most creative way you've been able to get out of you've been able to approach a problem where you had very limited budget. You just tell a story of where you had just your client or whatever it is that you're working on. I don't know. There wasn't any budget. You had to figure it out.
Awesome. Well, I'll get it asked. Dimana Markova, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.